Hey guys, welcome to episode 46 of the Daughter and Pops podcast. I am super stoked to get to today's podcast with Pops. I know that it's going to be kind of different today. I'm going to be doing the podcast on golf, and not just like any golf. This is the Outlaw Tour. During 2020, Outlaw Tour has definitely played a big part in our life, and I really appreciate them doing this like through the pandemic. And when we had first discovered the Outlaw Tour in 2020, we were like so surprised about like the guys that were playing out there, how great all these guys were. So in this case, I decided to dedicate a podcast just to them. Pops, do you have anything to say about the Outlaw Tour before we get started?
Yeah, for sure. The Outlaw Tour is a very strong developmental tour. So essentially, if you're comparing it to like Major League Baseball, this would be the equivalent of like high Double A, lower Triple A. But at the same token, as this tour has grown, and we have been to almost every one of their events, and we're like, Tatiana's considered like a super fan. She's gotten to know some of the guys really, really well. Not only on the course, but even off the course. These are the tour players of tomorrow. There is several college standouts recently turned pro. There's players that have status on tours directly below the PGA Tour and other tours that have affiliation to specifically the PGA Tour. And then, quite frankly, there's a handful of guys that are actually on the PGA Tour that occasionally play on the Outlaw Tour. So
one of them is going to be spoken about today.
There you go. See the way to preview it, Tatiana. So we want to make sure that we give the Outlaw Tour their due credit. This is a tour that's absolutely on the rise. I know Tatiana is thrilled to be talking about some of these guys and just the Outlaw Tour in general. So it should be a lot of fun. So they have a unique event that Tati's about to start talking about, and we'll take it from there.
So for the Outlaw Tour, in the experience that I've had in going to some of their events, this is the first match play event that I have experienced them doing. So I learned what match play is in golf, and that's where they play one round determining how they're going to go into the bracket. So when Pops told me how there's like a bracket, I'm like, oh, kind of like March Madness in college basketball, and he says exactly. So it's basically after stroke play, it's win or go home. So in this case, I'm going to start it off by talking about what a couple of the guys did in stroke play. And then after that, I'll go on to the matchups that happened today, and then the times and the matchups for tomorrow. So starting it off with stroke play, the number one.
Real quick. Stroke play is where you just you is what 99% of the time you just add up your score after every hole, and essentially whatever you shoot, you add up the total amount of strokes. So that's what she's referring to.
Yeah. So in that case, the number one person is Matt Marshall. He shot a 64 today. So this course is a par 72, so he shot 8 under. That's pretty crazy. And in that fact, he shot a 64 with no bogeys, so he had 8 birdies. And in that case, that's pretty impressive, right, Pops? Have you shot a 64 before?
I have. I've
Probably
actually
multiple 64s.
No, not multiple, but I have shot one 64. I remember it like it was yesterday. Unfortunately, it was about 27 years ago.
You probably remember the exact date.
But I'll tell you, it wasn't as recent as Matt Marshall, who, by the way, Tatiana and I were able to see him on the range today. It's pretty cool that when he gets it going, he can shoot really, really, really low numbers.
Yeah, he has, and we've seen him win multiple events for the Outlaw Tour, actually. And if he's not winning multiple events, he's coming in top 5. Matt Marshall, he's pretty consistent. He either shoots like really low or he's like in the middle, but you almost always see him like under par when he finishes his rounds. So in that case, he's a very consistent player. Tied for second, shot a 65. Actually, a PGA Tour player, Alex Checa, he shot a 65, 7 under, and he only had 1 bogey, so almost bogey free. So he's played in the PGA Tour. I know that he's played in a couple How many events do you think he's played in for Outlaw Tour? Probably like 3 or 4, huh?
I would say at least, yeah, probably four or five.
So
Because I know he lives in Vegas, and we've been able to talk with him as he's leaving the range before he starts. He's been very
yes,
friendly to Tatiana, and he lives in Vegas, so he makes the 3.5 hour drive down to play with some of these young guns on the Outlaw Tour.
the young guns.
Keeps his game sharp.
Yes, exactly. Another one tied for fifth, shot a 67 today, is Thomas Lehman. He is 5 under. So most of you are probably thinking like the Thomas Lehman, but it's his son. He's been very friendly. We've gotten to speak with the Thomas Lehman before, so that's been pretty cool because we have some connection there. And so Lehman, he can shoot pretty low sometimes. A 65, definitely not a bad score at all. But I feel like he's almost always one to root for, right, Pops? It's like you're almost always rooting for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some ties to California and specifically the area where we're originally from, and the original Tom Lehman. I mean, he's got a heck of a golf story and just about perseverance. Him and his wife, who's been really friendly to our family. So it's nice to see his son playing so well, and there's another son that also competes, but he's still in high school. But the Thomas Lehman that we're speaking of.
Yes.
In the year that we've been able to watch him develop as a pro golfer, he's definitely gotten stronger. He's become more consistent.
Yes, he has.
He can overpower a golf course, but slowly but surely he's improving. We see the difference in some of his scores. So good on him. A lot of pressure on him to be the son of essentially a Hall of Fame golfer.
Yes, exactly. He even had an eagle today out there on the course. Eagles are very rare. Well, I don't know. Not very rare with these guys. These guys shoot like an eagle almost every round. And so next we have, I like to call them the Jeffs because they're tied for seventh. Both shot 68, Jeff Burton and Jeff Berkshire. I feel like they're almost like the exact same player because not only do they have the same name, but like they're almost always shooting like the same score. And like both of their short games are very strong. So in that case, in my opinion, I like call them the double Jeff or whatever. I don't even know. What should we call them, Dad? Because they're always like right next to each other in
I
matches.
think roll with it. We'll call them the double Jeffs. We'll make sure you shout them out there when you see them later this week.
Yes, I will. Tied for seventh was Nicolo Galletti. He shot a 68. So in that case, it's 4 under. He has been very respectful in the it was one of the first tournaments we went out to see the Outlaw Tour events, and he was out there, and we were so impressed with him because he was playing like so well, and not only till afterwards we figured out that he came from like ASU, how he was like number one on the team at that time when he was playing with them. He ended up shooting like a really low score that day. I remember it, but he's very awesome. He's a very great golfer.
He's been fantastic. If he's listening, I mean, you're just a world-class talent. I mean, this is a guy that I believe will make it to the PGA Tour. He's got so much potential, and he's so good. He's fearless. I know a major golf publication actually did an article on him, calling him the best player during the pandemic when the Outlaw Tour was the only professional golf tour that was still going on. So that was good for Galletti to get some of that cred there. ASU is a top 5 powerhouse. Obviously, most people know that's where Phil Mickelson went to college, John Rahm, Paul Casey. So it's an embarrassment of riches that have come from ASU. And quite frankly, Galletti, he's definitely a top 10 ASU golfer probably ever. And I think he's got a very bright future ahead of him. So he's a tremendous young man, plays fast, fearless. One of the events we're talking about, we watched him win. He was on the 18th hole with like a 2-shot lead. And on a par 5 closing hole, he had like 230 to the hole. And it was almost dark, but he hit this, like I think it was like a 4-iron to this back right pin. And he hit it to like 15 feet like it was nothing. Like you would have thought it was just a normal round of golf for him. Yet here he was, earning a professional win. So just fascinating.
That was great verbiage there, Pops. That was nice to hear. So another thing before I bring up this next player, Pop said that in match play, most players that you would think like to win are the most consistent players. They're always shooting under par. They're very consistent with how they play and everything. So I feel like this guy is like one of the most is like the definition of consistency, and he is tied for 16th. He shot a 69 in stroke play. Daniel Hudson, 3 under. He's been super respectful to us. He's been so awesome. We've gotten to know him on and off the course, so that's been nice. And like I said, he's very consistent with the way he plays, isn't he? Like,
Yeah.
his short game is unbelievable.
No, I mean, at this point in time, we're proud to call him a friend. He's been even better off the course than he has been on, quite frankly, at least to us. Because I mean, if he was any better, then he'd be on the PGA Tour. I mean, just he's spent some time hooping it up with Tati and her sister Liv, and
Yes.
He's been a big fan. And quite honestly, we go out and try to watch him play as much as we can, and it's nice when he's in town to watch this young man play. And he's an asset to not only the Outlaw Tour, but honestly the golf community in general. So great ambassador for the game, and it's certainly an easy guy to root for. So we're excited to see him just how far he goes, because I believe up next you're going to probably talk about either first round matches.
Yes, first round matches.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's move on forward then. Let's turn that page.
Yes, turn the page. So, in turning the page, today was the first round. Oh shoot! I almost just teared out my page. That's not good.
Well, you collecting yourself. Today was the first round matches. So, essentially, it's like March Madness, right? Where everyone fills out an office bracket and you're not allowed to bet on it, but everyone bets on it anyway. So, like, essentially, round of 64. I don't think they got to 64. I think they ended up with like 61ish or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's win or go home. 18 holes. So essentially, this is now match play. So what that means is, you want to describe it, or you got it?
No, you got it.
Okay,
boss.
so essentially, instead of just adding up the score at the end of the day, you're playing literally one-on-one. So you're playing with the person that you're playing against. More strategy comes into play, because what you're trying to do is win as many holes as you can. Obviously, 18-hole matches. At the end of the day, if Tatiana makes a 4 on a hole and Pops makes a 6, then Tatiana wins that hole, and she essentially earns like a 1 point. So then, whether you win the hole by 1 or 7 shots, you just earn 1 point. So a lot more strategy comes into play. And eventually someone's up by so many holes, and there's only a few holes, like 4 up with only 3 holes remaining, then the match would be over. So it's win or go home, just like March Madness. Tatiana, what do you want to talk about with regards to the first round matches?
Well, in regards to the first round matches, before I get who these guys were paired up with, the top 3 guys, whoever shot the top 3 best scores, got a bye. So obviously Matt Marshall. And by the way, a bye is when you don't have to play you don't have to play in the first round matchups. Then you play in all the other ones, no matter how long it takes. You just don't play in the first one, but then you play in the rest. So Matt Marshall, Patrick P. Badaway, and Alex Checa, all 3 of those guys got a bye. So I'll just go in order. I'll go kind of quick because there's a lot of these ones. But you had Emery versus Healy. Healy won that matchup by 1. So in that case, it was pretty close the whole way through, but then he ended up pulling it off and winning by 1. And then you had Gardner versus Schwab. So Pops taught me this today. Schwab won 5-3. So this means that he was basically up by 5 with 3 holes to go. And if they both agree on like he won the match like fair and square, then they're allowed to just move on and like call it a match. So in that case, he won the matchup by 5, I guess you'd say, right, Pops?
Yeah, so like yes, that would be correct. He won the 15th hole, so he was 4 up on the 15th hole. He won that hole, So he became 5 up, but there was only 3 holes to play. So in other words, you give each other handshakes, and then you just head on into the clubhouse where the winner probably has a beer, and the loser goes to the driving range or slams his golf bag in his trunk, and he takes off.
You know, we've actually seen somebody, not a golf bag, but with their golf club slam it. That ended up like destroying the club. Then you had Daniel Hudson versus May. Hudson won 4-2. Lee versus Horn, which Horn is an amateur. Lee won that matchup 5-3. And then you have Williams versus Sewell. Williams won the matchup 6-5. And Williams, he is very consistent. He has a lot of potential, and he could hit like bombs, right, Pops? Like off of the driving range, he can hit it so far.
Yeah, I mean he came in second a while back at an event, and he's not the biggest guy, but yeah, I mean he can definitely hit it out there. I mean most of them can, but he can definitely for his size he can definitely get it out there.
Yes. Then you had Ryan Porch, or as Pops calls him, Porch Monkey, versus Ollie Roberts. Ollie Roberts won that match by 2. And then
most people would say that's a bit of a surprise.
Yes.
Ollie, not to be misconstrued with Carson Bucket Hat Roberts, and Porch Monkey Ryan. He's been playing pretty well lately, so I was a little surprised with that.
Well, speaking of Roberts, Roberts is next up, Carson Roberts. You had Doyle versus Carson Roberts, and this went to 19 holes. So what this means is after 18 holes, they were all tied up. So it was tied. So then they go back to hole number 1, and it's sudden death. So then whoever wins, if they tie the hole, then they go to do they replay that hole or go to the next one?
It depends, but
Depends
usually
on the tournament.
Yeah. So normally they would just go to the next hole.
Okay, well, this ended up going 19 holes, and Carson Roberts ended up winning in sudden death. Speaking of sudden death, it was also Giusti, I think I said that right, versus Brudical. They also went to 19 holes, and Giusti won that one. And then you had Winston versus Paez, and Winston won it 3-2. And then you have one of the Jeffs, Jeff Berkshire versus Fitzner, and Berkshire won 4-3. And then you also have Slattery. He's also a very good player. Shout out to him. Versus Sedino. Anytime I hear the last name Sedino, I think of Sedona. Sedino won that match 3-2. Then you also had Whalen versus McLean. And Whalen won that match 8-7.
Ooh,
that's interesting.
Man, that's Stephen Ames territory.
That's Stephen Ames. Pops, do you want to tell that story real fast? I just heard this one today. It's actually I kind of like this story.
So I'm really old, but I'm a big golf nut. Played a lot growing up and whatnot. Kind of like how Tati is with basketball. But I remember down in San Diego at the World Accenture Match Play that one year.
Listen to those facts.
Yeah, right. And so I remember because I lived in the city that the event was going on. I used to go to the event. But anyways, Stephen Ames, he's from Canada, or Trinidad and Tobago, I believe, or Canadian. Anyways, a little bit of an international player. He was having a really good season, and he qualified to play in the World Match Play. And he was, I believe, he was the 64th. He was the final player to get into the event. He was paired up against Tiger Woods. Well, I remember they were asked him. Some announcers asked him, what they thought about playing against Tiger, and quite honestly, Stephen Ames said, "Well, based on where he's hitting the ball, I think I can beat him." And then that word got back to Tiger Woods, and Tiger didn't really have too much to say. But then they played. Tiger ended up beating him 9-8. So
that's pretty crazy.
That is crazy, right? Because that's just ridiculous. I mean, that's almost as good as it gets. He almost won literally every hole. And so...
Didn't you say he actually missed the putt for birdie to go up 10?
Yeah, he almost won the match 10-8, which is, you can't do any better than that. So then after the round, they asked Tiger about it, and maybe the comments maybe fueled him at all, and all he kept saying was 9-8, 9-8. So... it just in match play, and because that's what we're talking about in this Outlaw Tour event, Tiger literally destroyed him. It's like the basketball equivalent of winning by 90 points.
Exactly.
Or me choking while I'm trying to finish the story.
That was a good story, Dad. So finishing this off, you also had Carlson, an amateur, versus Spencer. Spencer won 5-3, and then you had Toppy Hogan. Toppy Hogan, that's a fun name to say. I like saying that name. Versus Burnt, and Toppy Hogan won that match 6-4. Then you had Chambers versus Carlson, and Carlson won 4-2. And speaking of which, Ty Chambers, my bad, it's Ty Chambers. He actually had a very good round in stroke play. I believe he had like 2 eagles within a span of 3 holes, and that's very rare. That like never happens. So when I saw that, that was very surprising. Then you also had Schmitz versus Lee. Lee won that matchup 4-3. And then you had Galletti versus Alger, an amateur. Galletti won that match 7-5. And then Wallen versus, who is this? Condry. Wallen won the match 2-up, meaning by 2. And then I thought this was going to be a really good match. I thought it was going to be maybe the best match of the day. But it actually ended up being, I was kind of disappointed after hearing this. And it was Stayano versus Wheeldon. And Stayano won the match 6-5. I have respect for both of these guys, but like, I say they're like definitely in my top 10 favorites, both of them.
Straight up, Stayano. He's an Italian, and he obviously played really, really well today. He's probably just as well known for. He dresses well, but he also. Shout out to you, Jake, but I mean, you wear maybe the tightest clothes I've ever seen. Mini golfer. I'm not even sure I was able to turn and whatnot, but I mean, he's pretty ripped, so I mean, I get it. I guess if I was that ripped, maybe I'd be wearing that tight of clothes too. But hey, keep up the good work. We notice those things, bud.
You're funny, Pops. Then we also had Debris versus Rondrick, and Debris won the match 2-1. And then you had Smith versus Bailey. Bailey actually went into this as this, I believe, as like the lowest, second to one of the top 5 lowest ranks. And Smith was in, I believe, top 7. And so Bailey actually won the match 4-2. Pops, do you think he's going to win this next match? He actually has a match tomorrow against Debris. You think he's going to win it?
I do, because, I mean, Bailey's incredible, right? and in stroke play, right, where they ranked them all, that's just one round. Bailey's been playing really well, and it was just a couple weeks ago, actually less than 2 weeks ago, where him and his partner, they actually won a tournament, a 2-man team event, where they birdied like the last 10 holes, and essentially they beat some PGA Tour players like Max Homa,
Shane Bacon.
Shane Bacon was his partner, Joel Damon, top 70 player in the world. So this guy Bailey, he's incredibly gifted. When he gets going, he can really play. And to be honest with you, I actually heard the guy. We're not going to say him by name, but if you're listening to this podcast, he shot the lowest round yesterday, and we've already talked about him. We actually overheard him on the range calling Bailey Santa Claus.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we were actually, I don't know. We didn't really say anything to each other, Pops.
We laughed. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we laughed. Like, we didn't really say anything to each other. Okay, so then next up we had Fessler, the amateur, which he came in tied for second, versus B Pounds. That's one of the most funny names I've ever heard. B Pounds. Fessler won the match 7-6. Then we also had Will Bateman versus Roeder, and Bateman won the match 7-5. Bateman travels everywhere. Like, he's out of Canada, and like we always see him like in Florida. He's always like every day it seems like he's in a new place, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, if I could swing the golf clubs as well as he does, I'd be traveling everywhere to play too.
Yes.
By the way, he's another fine young man. He's a gentleman and another great ambassador for the game. There's a lot of similarities, actually, in my opinion, between him and Hudson. I hope, I know you will go over the brackets here pretty quick, but
yes.
I'd love to see those two players square off at the end. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, it would be. Then we also have Galloway versus Giernart. Galloway won it in 19 holes, so that went to sudden death. Crawford versus Walker. Crawford won 3-2. Then we also had the other Jeff, Burton versus Shanahan, and Shanahan won by 1. So in that case, one Jeff won, the other Jeff lost.
So either way, a Jeff was going to be moving forward.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then we had Kevin Lucas versus Spencer Fletcher. Lucas won 5-3. Lucas, he's also another, as Pops would say, another great young man.
He's actually got a Corn Ferry status, so he's on the tour directly below the PGA Tour. Man, this guy's so talented. He comes from a huge family. He also plays some basketball. He's got a brother that's one of the best top-ranked bass fishermen in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an embarrassment of talent in this family. And quite frankly, that's what we love about the Outlaw Tour is so many of these guys, they're clearly on the rise. These are all fascinating young men that are just doing amazing things. And quite honestly, more people need to be in tune with what these guys are doing. So however we can help shine a light on them now and in the future, we will continue to share these young men's stories because it's fascinating stuff. And so we're happy to help out in any way we can. And you want to tell real quick the listeners one of the trick shots during the middle of a round that he pulled off for you?
Yeah, I was going to say something about his trick shots after you were speaking, Dad. But in one of the previous tournaments that we went to, the Outlaw Tour, Lucas was there and he was playing. He had just finished up the 9th hole. And we're sitting watching all these guys approach shots and then them drive by us in their golf carts. And he stops, comes next to me. And honestly, I don't even know in the moment what we did, but what he did. But afterwards, Pops told me, and he said for me to drop a ball. So he has his pitching wedge. He hits the ball from behind, and then I don't even, Pops, you explain it, because I don't even know.
So basically,
what
a lot of people, they like to brag about how they can basically play ping pong with a golf ball and hit the ball up in the air and juggle it. And so a lot of people can do that, and quite frankly, even I can, even though I'm middle aged. But Lucas basically did it backwards. Upside down, essentially blindfolded while holding his breath and sneezing all at the same time. So it was incredibly impressive.
He was looking at me the whole time, so I mean, technically you could say it was blindfolded.
More importantly, he did it on the first take, and that's what was so crazy. And after he pulled it off, he just walked off like it was nothing. And that's Kevin Lucas for the win.
Exactly. So if you're listening to this, we're Kevin, we're excited to see another trick shots coming up soon. And then for the last 2 matches, we had Trasmar versus Byram. Byram won that match by 1. And lastly, we had Lehman versus Moshka, and Lehman won by 2. So all these guys that won today move on to the next round. The guys that lost today, they go home. So congrats to all of these guys that won today. For tomorrow's matchups, I'll go through these real quickly. We have Marshall versus Healy. Pops, who do you have for the win in that? We're gonna go back and forth, and we're gonna see who's gonna win. I got Matt Marshall.
I mean, he's the number 1 seed. He's one of the better players on the tour. He's an overwhelming favorite. I would put his odds. He's probably minus 450, minus 500. He should easily move forward. With all due respect to his playing competitor, I'm gonna project not only Matt Marshall to win, but he's gonna win 5-4.
5-4. Let me write that down, Pops, because you're really good with that. Okay, next we have Schwab versus Daniel Hudson. I have Hudson for the win. Pops?
It's a tough one.
This is a good matchup right
This is a tough one because we know Hudson quite well, and we're able to talk with him quite frequently. We're going to take him, no doubt. I'm going to say Hudson because there's just no other option.
But Schwab win 5-3 today.
Schwab won 5-3, and actually I saw his scorecard from today, and he was 6 under par in today's round alone. So
against Garner, and Garner's a pretty tough matchup.
So I mean, honestly, I'm going to take Hudson, and he's going to win 2-1, just because he's just so steady. He got nerves of steel. What other way to describe it? If you're playing at the University of Kansas. I mean, you're used to winning. So I got Hudson in a squeaker, 2-1.
The Jayhawks. Then we have Lee versus Williams. I'll take Williams.
That's an interesting one. Lee, we watched him. He came on strong later in the round yesterday, but I'll take Ryan Williams too. I think just too much firepower.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because Williams, like we said earlier, he can hit bombs, but Lee, he seemed pretty consistent in his irons. His irons were very strong off of what we saw out of him. Then we have Ollie Roberts versus Giusti. I don't know how to say his last name, but I'm just going to call it Giusti. I'll take Giusti for the win because it seemed like he, I really have not seen him play before, but out of the 2 rounds that he has played so far, he seems to be pretty strong and pretty consistent with that.
I'll go with you. I'll take the same player in 19 holes. They're going to go sudden death.
Oh, 19 holes. Okay. Then we have Badaway versus Carson Roberts. I feel like this is gonna be a good one. I'll take Carson Roberts though.
I'll definitely take Carson Roberts.
Well, Badaway is the number 2 seed in this.
He is, but I mean that was one of the best rounds I've ever seen him shoot in Outlaw Tour.
That is true
Carson
too.
Roberts has a little bit more pedigree. Badaway's known more for his Christmas sweaters. In the case of Badaway, I mean, good player, obviously, but I think he's going to have a hard time backing that up with another low one. And I think Carson Roberts, once he gets it going, to me, this course, the style of player, match play, I like Carson.
Okay. Then we have Winston versus Berkshire. In this case, I'll take Winston.
Jen? I'll take Berkshire then.
You'll take Okay, just to go
3-2.
3-2. Okay. Then we have Wayland versus Cedeno. I honestly don't know much about either of these players, but based off of their scorecards, I'll take Wayland.
I will as well.
Okay. Then we have Spencer versus Toppy Hogan. I'll take Toppy Hogan for the win.
I'll tell you, dude, Toppy, he is someone that's going to be tough to beat. I liked his confidence. I liked his confidence today. And I don't think it's going to be ending anytime soon. It's certainly not going to end tomorrow. So I like him as well.
Then we have the PGA Tour Pro, Alex Cheka versus Carlson. I'll take Cheka because, this really isn't a big stage for him yet, as it is to maybe even some of the amateurs over here. So in this case, I'll just take Cheka.
I'll take Alex Cheka too. He's going to win 4-3. Just too much experience. Too much pedigree, and so I do like him. I think he's gonna do. I think he's gonna do big things. At the end of the day, I'm checking right now while I'm on the air. I'm kind of cheating, but I want to say that literally, I want to say that he even played in a Ryder Cup.
In a Ryder Cup,
which is essentially match play, and talk about pressure. There's no greater pressure than that. So
well, with him, in talking about pressure, with Alex Cheka, with him being on the PGA Tour, he's played at multiple high levels, and in this case the highest level of them all. I don't really think he's feared at all. Plus, after talking to him too a couple of times, he doesn't sound feared.
So I think, in fact, I don't think he didn't play, but I think he was like an assistant captain, assistant to the assistant captain. And real quick, going back to Cheka, super nice guy, but I don't even think Cheka sometimes knows where he's at. I can't tell that story just because I can't. But any of you that want to DM Tatiana, I'll be happy to share a personal story about Alex Cheka, but not on the air.
Yeah, exactly. If you need to DM me, my Instagram is at Tati_harness. Okay, next matchup. We have Lee versus Galletti. I gotta go with our boy Galletti.
Yeah, I feel bad.
Just how can you not?
I feel bad that's against B. Lee, right?
Correct.
So we have 2 Roberts in this, and then we have 2 Lees in this, right?
Yes.
All right, well...
And we also have 2 Jeffs.
So, yeah, in the case of this match, I definitely like Galletti. I don't know if any of you guys have ever tried this before, but if you've ever tried to jump in front of a train, it's really hard to stop it. and for Brandon Lee tomorrow against Galletti, I think this is going to be a curb stopping. I have Galletti winning by 7-6 over Brandon Stephen Amesley.
7-6.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Amesley. Okay. Next we have Wallen versus Stayano. I'll take Stayano.
Yeah, I expect
Tight pants Stayano.
Man, I think he's gonna move forward. I mean, Wallen's tough though. But Stayano, I mean, I think he's gonna do just enough. I mean, I know that if there's any player out there that's got every single outfit already perfectly ironed for the entire week, it's definitely Jake. So I'm gonna give him one more round. He's gonna win literally one up on the 18th hole.
Okay, hang on. Let me write that down, Pops.
Yeah,
One
Jake
up.
Stayano going straight Super Mario Brothers, one up.
Mario Brothers. Okay, next we have Debris versus Bailey. We already spoke on this matchup, but again, I think we're both taking Bailey.
I got Santa Claus 4-3.
Okay, 4-3. Next we have Fessler, the amateur, versus Bateman. I'll take Bateman.
Man, Fessler's pretty darn good.
He's came in as an amateur. He's came in at the top multiple times.
This guy's super good. Honestly, this might be the match of the day, with two great players. I would love to take Fessler, just because it's going to surprise some people and they're going to just get confused because they see the amateur and the A next to his name. But Bateman is one of my top 4 or 5 guys going into this week.
Exactly.
And I got Bateman based off experience and just overall consistency. So I got Bateman 2-1.
2-1. Okay. Next we have Galloway versus Crawford. I'll take Galloway because I honestly don't know anything about Crawford.
I'm going to take Aaron Crawford.
Okay.
3-2.
3-2. Okay.
I'm not impressed by you, Jeff. Sorry. Not this Jeff.
Oh, actually, you know what? I messed up. There's 3 Jeffs.
Well, there you go.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, then we have Shanahan versus Kevin Lucas. I'll take Lucas because I honestly don't see how Shanahan wins that.
We know firsthand that Lucas has big intentions and he's looking to play lots of rounds this week. I don't think Shanahan is going to be able to call an audible on this one. If you got that Shanahan NFL comparison there, then good on you. In the second to last match of the day, I like Kevin Lucas. 4-3.
Okay. Last matchup of the day. Jake Byram versus Thomas Lehman.
2 Scottsdale guys. Both these guys pretty big. I'm sorry, Thomas. I'm going Jake Byram, 2-1.
Oh, okay then.
A little surprise there, wasn't it?
Yes, there was. I'm taking Lehman, so I disagree with you, Pops.
Okay. Well, so we previewed all the second round matches. I got to ask you, because I know each of us are able, because, again, with Outlaw Tour, you can watch their live scoring, and their live scoring is pretty good. They even stream some of their matches.
Yes.
And that's cool, and
they update their live scoring very fast.
They do. And so if we're looking at the overall bracket as we get down, who, in your opinion, Tatiana, if you're able to look, who do you like? What do you see as the final match?
As the final match, okay.
So if you're looking at this board here, right? So you got to choose one player from this side, right?
Yeah.
So
we're
do
looking
it this
at
way.
this while on air, just saying.
We are. So you got big names such as Santa Claus, Bateman, right? You've got Nico, Firestorm, Killer Galletti. You got Alex, PGA Tour, Cheka. Alex, I didn't play in the Ryder Cup, Cheka. You got Toppy Hogan. You've got Carson Roberts.
I definitely have Galletti as one of them.
You got Hudson and Matt Marshall.
I don't know. I feel like this is really tough because I have Galletti as one of them in the finals. I kind of like Matt Marshall because he's very consistent with how he plays. I think I'm kind of deciding between Marshall and Cheka.
Okay.
So I have it as Galletti for sure, and then either Matt Marshall or Alex Cheka. Pops, what about you?
I got Kevin Lucas playing Daniel Hudson. And this is a tough one for me. Sorry, Kevin. Daniel, I got you playing at the Optima level, and you will play in the finals. Actually, you know what? I take that back. That would be the final matchup. So I got Kevin Lucas playing Daniel Hudson. They had it all on one side. I went to try to go to the other side, and there was nothing but nothing.
There was nothing but nothing.
Yeah, so I've got.
I see them making it to the finals, but I think that I don't know. I feel like Coletti is just so tough. I mean,
no doubt. So if you were to rank them, if you were to put literally odds up on these guys, it would be argued that Galletti would be the actually probably Alex Checa would be the odds-on favorite, followed closely by Galletti, and then the names that I took, Lucas would probably be top 5. Hudson would be around 10th to 12th, unfortunately. Matt Marshall would be up there just because he had the lowest round. So either way, we're down to the final 32. If I were to take a sleeper guy out of all here, Toppy Hogan.
Yes.
That guy, he's channeling his inner Ben Hogan. And it's really hard to go against someone with the first name of Toppy. You've got to have a lot of confidence to overcome that first name.
You have to top that. You have to top it. I have Carson Roberts as a sleeper.
Carson Roberts. Okay. Well, on that note,
I know that was our podcast for the day.
We're going to come back and do this again tomorrow as we preview the round of 16 matches. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. These guys deserve a lot of love. They're very committed to their craft. Great people. So it's easy to root for. And hopefully, DraftKings is going to have some action in on them pretty soon. I know a lot of people enjoy that kind of stuff. And outside of that, we're grateful to talk about the Outlaw Tour. And, we are coming up on a continuation, the PGA Tour. They are currently in Hawaii for the Tournament of Champions.
Oh, Hawaii.
Then the next week they're again in Hawaii before they head over to California for a couple of events. And then they'll end up in Scottsdale, Arizona at the first week of February. I know we're really looking forward for that event for a few different reasons. So,
Pops, isn't that the Waste Management in Scottsdale? Isn't that where the famous 16th hole is?
It is.
Everybody screams and cheers whenever they hit. Well,
that's correct.
I don't know if that's going to happen this year, but
right? Yeah, no, there's still going to be fans there, and I think they're going to have about 8,000 fans there, in and around that hole, and they're
still going to be screaming and cheering, just not as loud as usual.
No, I think they're going to be cheering even louder because there's only 8,000 of them. And so I think it's going to be just like it always is. So it's going to be a pretty big party. Obviously masks up, and who knows how they're going to do it, but
yeah, exactly.
They'll figure it out. So it's nice to have sports. I know we've always said that, whether we're talking about basketball, whether we're talking about golf or anything else. It's nice to have sports, and we're proud of Tatiana for again expanding her horizons. And I think I'm gonna let her finish up and maybe talk about something she's got going on.
Yes.
And so thanks for listening.
Speaking of expanding the horizons, for me, I am trying something different, and towards the end of the month, I'm actually going to be playing in a golf tournament. So I'm pretty excited for that. Definitely learning more about golf. Also, just making sure I know as much as I can at such a young age, right, Pops? That's what you always say to me.
That's right.
I appreciate all of you guys listening into this. I know that it was a different podcast, and I was excited to do this one because every time it's something different, it's always exciting. So again, I appreciate you all tuning in to episode 46 with Pops and I. Pops, anything else before I wrap it up?
No.
Okay. Thank you guys all for tuning in to episode 46. We'll see you all soon. Thank you again.